Vreka -7 lay on a cot, jaw clenched against the ache that had been his constant companion for 31 years.
This is a captured human pain tablet. I want you to try it.
Another test. What does it matter? The pain makes death a mercy.
He took the pill, swallowed it with tepid water, and closed his eyes. 22 minutes passed, each second measured by the drip of a monitor.
Something is absent. The ever-present fire is gone.
He opened his eyes. The constant grinding in his joints and burning in his muscles had simply stopped.
The pain. It's gone.
Tears cut channels through the grime on his face as he sat up, his body trembling. His species had a word for pleasure. It did not have a word for absence of pain. By morning, it would. The Tashran body had evolved without the ability to regulate pain. Every soldier lived in constant, low-grade agony. Days earlier, a Tashran raiding party intercepted a human medical freighter. Among the supplies, they found small white tablets. Krell Vesh, a field medic with a hunger for discovery, examined the captured pills. They were labeled ibuprofen.
A human painkiller. Their biology is different, but maybe it could work on us?
He chose a test subject, Vreka -7, a soldier whose wounds had left him in unrelenting pain. The risk was minimal. The soldier was dying anyway.
If the tablet kills him, it is a mercy. If it works, I cannot imagine what follows.
When Vreka sat up, weeping, Krell understood the magnitude of what he had done. The Tashran soldier was not in pain.
This is not a painkiller. It is a key to a door our species never knew existed.
He rushed back to his lab, the remaining pills clutched in his hand. The war had just changed. For the first time, the Tashran people had a word for what they lacked, and it had come from the enemy. The next morning, Vreka -7 opened his eyes to a foreign sensation, the quiet absence of fire in his nerves. He had slept without pain for the first time since childhood.
I slept. The whole night. I didn't wake once. How is this possible? Krell, I need more of that pill, please. Whatever it takes.
The effect will fade. I have only a few tablets, but for what you've endured, I'd look giving you endured. I'll give you another.
The other wounded stared, then begged, one soldier offering his entire pay for a single tablet.
I cannot sell this. It's too precious, and I won't choose who among you suffers more. The worst case is first.
He handed out a handful of white tablets. Within minutes, the ward echoed with laughter and weeping, the sound of a lifetime of pain lifting.
This is madness. If word spreads, they'll tear the base apart for these pills, and I will not be able to stop it.
The whole army needs this. Every Tashran on any world. I must find a way.
By nightfall, the story had escaped the ward, carried by whispers and the footsteps of orderlies. The secret could not be contained. By dawn, a line of soldiers snaked through the corridor, not for wounds, but for the white pill that erased suffering. They shouted demands, offering credits, rations, anything for a chance at relief.
I can't give it to everyone. I've only got a few tablets left, and the worst cases need them most.
An officer shoved through the crowd, voice cutting over the noise.
It's just a painkiller. It helps them. Why would I stop?
The soldiers refused to disperse. They surrounded Krell, and the officer retreated, unnerved.
If they feel what I feel, the war ends. No one will fight.
In a dim corner, 5 soldiers plotted in whispers. They had tasted relief and could not go back. Desertion or death. Either way, the pain would end. They chose to walk to the enemy and beg. The plan was set. At dawn, 5 soldiers would cross no man's land. Dawn broke over the no man's land. 5 Tashran soldiers walked slowly, carrying a white banner lifted on a rifle barrel. A human sentry's voice cracked over the radio. Unarmed hostiles at the wire. They're holding some kind of white cloth. The lead, Tashran, dropped to his knees, hands shaking, and spoke in broken trade. Pain, medicine, please. A human field medic, heart hammering, stepped out from behind the barricade. She carried a medical kit, not a rifle. The medic hesitated. then placed a small white bottle in the soldier's trembling palm. Ibuprofen. The Tashran clutched the bottle to his chest and wept. Deep, ragged sobs that carried across the silent field. "They just want the pills," came the crackle over the channel. "I repeat, they're asking for medication." The command tent erupted in debate. Were they really surrendering for a painkiller? Was this a trick or a moral obligation? Before they could decide, another group of Tashrans appeared on the horizon. Then another. The war had turned into a queue. The field medic, her hands full of small white bottles, understood. This wasn't strategy, it was humanity. The command tent fell silent as Maria Castellanos, a veteran medic, quietly stood.
They came to us unarmed, holding a white flag. They asked for medicine, not weapons. I can set up a station outside the wire. Give me 4 hours and every bottle of ibuprofen we have.
She won not with tactics, but with ethics. By midday, a Red Cross tent stood on no man's land. Tashran deserters knelt in the dust, and Maria knelt with them, handing out tablets and water. Among the tide of desperate faces, a soldier stepped forward. Vreka -7, the first to taste relief.
I came because I need more. The pain, it came back, and I cannot bear it.
I have enough for now, but understand, it wears off, and you'll need another dose.
Then I'll stay. I'll help teach others. I won't go back to the pain.
Maria looked at him, a soldier who had crossed worlds to kneel, and saw not an enemy, but a patient. Far away, Emperor Vrelin Tor stared at a datapad, his knuckles white. Desertion reports had tripled overnight.
They run to the humans for a pill. This is cowardice. I want every deserter executed.
He slammed the order onto the table. The generals hesitated, then nodded, but their eyes betrayed doubt. When the execution squads were summoned, 3 of them had already crossed the line.
They are not afraid of me. They are afraid of the pain. And the humans have taken that fear away.
Propaganda blared across the barracks. The humans were tricking them. The soldiers turned off the screens. Advisors warned, "Your radiance. If we force this, the army will not obey."
Then I will speak to the humans directly. They will surrender this weapon, or we will burn their worlds.
The ultimatum was drafted. Hand over the Painkiller compound or face total war. The message raced toward Earth, where ibuprofen was sold for pocket change. The Emperor had just declared war on aspirin. Deep in a CDC archive on Earth, a report sat untouched for decades, its pages yellowing under a thin layer of dust. It described Tashran neurobiology in precise detail, a species unable to shut off pain, living in constant low-grade suffering. The conclusion was stark. Opening pharmaceutical trade could collapse their entire social structure. "We recommend no intervention." The report was stamped, classified, and buried. No one in the military medical corps ever saw it. Maria Castellanos, on a dusty no-man's land, had never heard of it. She knew only that people were hurting. Had the warning been heeded, the war might have dragged on for years, sustained by Tashran pain. Instead, a single act of compassion, uninformed by policy, was about to rewrite galactic history. But the CDC's quiet recommendation remained a buried secret, a ticking bomb waiting to surface. Humanity's moral high ground was about to crack, revealing a far more complicated truth. But for now, the only truth that mattered was the cue of Tashrans kneeling before a human medic, asking for peace. On a neutral station, human and Tashran diplomats faced each other across a long table. The Emperor's ultimatum hung in the air. A human delegate held up a printed chemical formula and a crumpled store receipt. He spoke calmly, "This is ibuprofen. You can buy it at any pharmacy. It costs less than a cup of coffee."
They mock me. Tell the envoy to demand surrender within 1 standard day, or we will sterilize their border worlds.
The human delegates exchanged glances. They were negotiating a war over a painkiller sold to children.
If I back down, I lose everything. But if I push, I may lose everything anyway.
The Tashran envoy repeated the ultimatum. Total war unless the weapon was handed over. The clock started. On Earth, news channels ran the story. Ibuprofen sales spiked. Citizens offered to mail their own bottles.
Let them laugh. They will learn the meaning of pain when our bombs fall.
But on the front lines, his soldiers were already walking away, clutching bottles that cost less than their rations. In a harsh-lit interrogation room, 2 officers led Maria Castellanos to a cold metal chair, her medic's badge catching the light. The lead officer placed a data pad on the table and asked the question everyone wanted answered.
Months ago, I gave a bottle of ibuprofen to a Tashran prisoner. She was in constant pain.
The officers stiffened. That was the source. That one bottle.
Did I cause all this chaos? But how could I have done nothing?
They demanded to know if she'd been ordered to do it.
No one told me. I saw suffering, and I acted.
Then, a voice read the charge. Unauthorized contact with the enemy and distribution of a controlled substance. Court-martial pending.
If you lock me up, who treats the deserters? Who keeps the peace?
The question hung in the sterile air, unanswered. The war had become a paradox no one had trained for. Months earlier, in a dusty POW camp, Maria Castellanos knelt beside a wounded Tashran prisoner. She pressed a small white pill into the prisoner's trembling hand and spoke softly.
This is ibuprofen. It will take away the pain. Trust me.
Within minutes, the prisoner's rigid agony softened. She looked up, baffled.
Take one every 6 hours. If the pain returns, take another. Do you understand?
Maria pressed the entire bottle into the prisoner's hands. An entire month's supply. The prisoner returned to her barracks, cradling the bottle like a sacred relic. She gathered her squad and held up the pill bottle, her whispered account spreading like fire. She told them a human medic had given her the pill, and the pain had simply ended. The galaxy would later name this single, unsanctioned act of compassion the kindness incident. When the ultimatum deadline passed, humanity opened free clinics across the demilitarized zone, not as a tactic, but as an answer. Tashran soldiers crossed in droves, clutching empty hands, not as combatants, but as patients seeking relief. An order crackled through Tashran comms: attack the clinics. The soldiers looked at each other, then laid down their weapons. Rifles formed a mountain. Soldiers joined the queue, some still in tears from their first pain-free hour. Human and Tashran medics worked side by side, a moment of stunned unity. The Tashran command structure fractured. Officers found their barracks empty, their orders unanswered. The war ground to a halt without a single shot. The front line became a waiting room. Maria, in her cell, watched the footage. The pill she'd given a stranger had grown into a tide no emperor could stop. She had a court-martial ahead, but the truth of her choice now lay bare. Compassion, uncalculated and unstoppable. The emperor's ultimatum lay in tatters, answered not by bombs, but by an army of deserters carrying empty bottles. Civilian Tashrans, hearing of the miracle, took to the streets. They held signs scribbled with a single plea: give us the pill.
My people have gone mad. A pill cannot undo my empire.
In a makeshift media tent, a human journalist handed Vreka -7 a transmitter. Your people need to hear from you, she said.
What do I say to a species that has never known silence in its bones? I will speak from my own bones. I am Vreka -7. For 31 years, I lived with a fire in my nerves. Then a small white pill extinguished it. Do not fight the humans. Walk toward them. Ask for the medicine. They will give it. The war is a lie born from our pain.
The broadcast reached every Tashran world. In barracks and homes, people wept, then rose. A river of civilians marched on the imperial palace, no longer afraid of the emperor's wrath. Their pain was louder than his threats.
I am not a leader. I am a soldier who stopped hurting. But if you need a voice, I will speak. Together, we will know silence.
They are at the gates. My own guards whisper of the pill. The throne is cracking beneath me.
In the bunker beneath the palace, Emperor Vrelentor stood before a console, his hand trembling over a missile activation key.
A single pillar of fire, and the humans will understand the price of defiance.
He keyed the sequence. On the screen, launch coordinates locked onto the main human clinic.
Execute.
The guards did not move. One of them raised a small white bottle and pleaded, "We've tried it. Please don't make us murder healers."
Traitors. I will do it myself.
The guards wrestled him away, gently but firmly, placing restraints on his wrists. The emperor of the Tashran Imperium was arrested by his own soldiers, in his own bunker, before a single missile launched. The war ended, not with a bang, but with a quiet mutiny, and the sound of a pill bottle clattering to the floor. The court-martial of Maria Castellanos convened in a packed military hall, cameras from a dozen worlds capturing every word. The prosecution rested. Now the defense called a Tashran soldier who had never spoken in a human court before.
I am Vreka, -7. I have nothing to offer except my pain and its absence. Maria Castellanos gave my people the first silence we have ever known. She broke no law. She honored the only law that should matter. When suffering begs, you answer.
The courtroom fell silent. Not a uniform rustled. The judges withdrew and returned in under an hour. The verdict: not guilty on all charges. Compassion is not a crime, the lead judge declared. Maria was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal for ethical courage. She accepted it with a quiet nod. Then, without ceremony, she unpinned the medal and turned toward Vreka, -7.
You were the first to walk. You spoke when I could not. This belongs to both of us, and to everyone who will never hurt the same way again.
The medal rested over a heart that had once known only burning, and the image flashed across the galaxy. The war's true monument. Within days of Maria's acquittal, the classified CDC report was leaked onto public networks. Its headlines spread like a shockwave. Humanity knew about Tashran pain for decades and chose not to act. Protesters gathered in city squares, accusing the government of hiding a cure for political gain. Maria Castellanos, now discharged, stood before a crowd of journalists.
I never saw the report, but if I had, I still would have given that prisoner the pill. They call it the pain gap. But closing it didn't start with a policy. It started with a bottle.
Talk shows and op-eds argued whether Earth had a moral duty to intervene earlier. The galaxy watched as humans turned the weapon of their own inaction against themselves.
The report warned about societal collapse, but kindness doesn't collapse a society, injustice does.
No consensus emerged, but the clinic stayed open, and the pain gap narrowed. In the former Imperial Palace, a provisional council took their seats. Vreka, -7, stood among them, Maria's medal still on his chest.
The silence in my head is still unfamiliar, but the clarity it brings is a weapon sharper than any blade. We will transform our industry. Every factory that once made bombs will now make medicine.
Engineers dismantled missile lines and assembled tablet presses, following blueprints freely shared by humans. For the first time, Tashran politicians debated policy without the constant weight of physical pain clouding their judgment.
We built an empire on suffering. It was inevitable that it would become monstrous.
The old imperial propaganda crumbled. Citizens no longer feared the throne. They questioned its every decree.
We will achieve independence from human charity. The chemical formula is simple. We can produce it ourselves.
Tashran chemists, no longer dulled by pain, studied the synthesis quickly. Within months, domestic production began.
Our ancestors had no word for absence of pain. Today, our children will.
The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as a historian rose, holding not a treaty, but a small white tablet. She declared the Tashran conflict the first biochemical revolution, where a painkiller, not a bomb, ended a war. The humble medical freighter, still bearing its red cross, was towed to a permanent station and opened as a museum. Visitors from a dozen worlds came to see the crates that once held nothing more dangerous than relief. Maria Castellanos and Vreka, -7, walked together through the cargo bay, silent until they reached the original shipment. Vreka touched a dusty bottle in the exhibit. "This was the enemy?" he asked.
Number. That was the truth.
The caption on the exhibit read, "One bottle, one medic, one kindness." It wasn't strategy. It wasn't politics. It was a human impulse. When someone is hurting, you help. The galaxy would someday call it a revolution, but the people who lived it called it a gift. 1 year after the war's end, a monument was unveiled on the exact spot where Maria Castellanos first set up her aid tent. It depicted 2 hands, one human, one Tashran, reaching toward each other, a small white pill between the fingers. Maria Castellanos approached the podium in the same field jacket she had worn on No Man's Land.
We didn't give you a weapon. We didn't give you a strategy. We gave you a choice, a way out of pain. You chose to stop the pain. That took more courage than pulling a trigger.
Beside her, Vreka -7 smiled, the medal she had given him glinting in the afternoon sun. The crowd, human and Tashran together, rose in a roar that echoed across the once barren No Man's Land.
This is not a monument to war. It is a reminder that healing can undo what harm created.
The word we lacked. Now it's written in stone.
The monument became a pilgrimage. Children drew pictures of the pill. The kindness incident had a face, and it was made of stone in a simple but clean prison cell. A guard pushed a cup of water and a small white pill toward the deposed emperor.
Your kindness is poison. Take that thing away.
The guard hesitated, then knelt. "Your head aches as much as mine did. This helps. Please."
He kneels for me. After all I did.
His hand shook as he lifted the tablet to his mouth. He swallowed, and for the first time since childhood, the pounding in his skull ceased.
The silence. I have never felt this. I sentenced my people to a lifetime of fire.
When Vreka -7 arrived, he found the former emperor not as a tyrant, but as a man hollowed by regret.
The pain you feel now is not your punishment. It is your beginning.
The emperor spent the next week writing a letter, a formal apology to humanity, released by the provisional government. In the end, the emperor's own relief became the final proof. No weapon ends a war like the absence of pain. In a modest Tashran home, Vreka -7 lifted a simple wooden frame and gently placed the medal inside, aligning it with care.
This piece of metal is heavier than any weapon I ever carried. It does not promise victory. It promises silence.
His mate and young one watched from across the room, not fully understanding the object, but understanding the peace in his posture. Later, they visited the monument together, the child's small hand in his.
That shape between the hands is the first stone of our new world. Remember this, little one.
The child reached out, tiny fingers brushing the carved pill, and smiled.
Once I thought peace required a throne. Now I know it only requires a pill and a person willing to share it.
The medal became a family heirloom, not for the honor it represented, but for the silence it proved possible. Vreka -7 had begun as a soldier. He ended as a father, standing before a monument built on a single capsule. The war was over. The pain had been named. And in a quiet home, a medal reminded them all. Peace begins with a single hand reaching out. A bright human convenience store. Aisle 3, pain relief. Bottles of ibuprofen lined the shelf, a simple sign reading 1.99 credits. A young Tashran child tugged at her mother's sleeve, pointing to the white boxes with wide, curious eyes. "Are those the magic pills, Mama? The ones that make the fire stop?" she asked. The mother knelt, smiling softly. "They're not magic, they're just medicine." The child frowned. "Then why didn't we have them before?" The mother took a bottle from the shelf, her hand steady. "Because no one knew we could stop hurting," she said. She walked to the counter, placed the bottle gently, and paid. The transaction was ordinary. The meaning was not. Outside, the sky was pale yellow, with 2 moons rising. The child clutched the white box as if it held a treasure. The galaxy would remember the kindness incident. But for this child, it was just the day pain became a choice. The screen fades to black, and a single line of text appears. The kindness incident. Year 1.